Good morning, Internet. I've been incredibly busy, launched a few books, did loads of other stuff. So back to the podcast now, because I do love a podcast. So my eye surgery, first of all, I'm healed. It still nips a bit, and I guess it's about 5 weeks since I had it done. And if I squint, you know, when you squint to shrink your eyes to look at something, try and look at something, it does pinch all around the edges. And I will say that the pain at some points was almost unbearable, and I would rather give birth. Well, I don't have the capacity to give birth anymore, so it's just as well, really. Really, really painful, and I don't know if that was just me. I haven't read a lot of research suggesting that other people felt as much pain as I did, so I'm sort of coming around to the idea that it was probably me. I'm just very, very sensitive around the eyes. But it did feel like at one point it was so close to my brain. And because I use my eyes an awful lot, you see, I'm an artist and a musician. I mean, people do everyone uses their eyes, don't they? Of course they do. But I think, you know, my eye exercise, as it were, from doing different things all day is maybe part of the problem. So, you know, when you play an instrument, you've got the music to look at. Perhaps you're playing along to your accompaniment on the TV screen, you know, your orchestra or whatever it is, you know, however it is that one practices. Sleeping, I could not get to grips with sleeping on my back. I did for the first few nights, but then after that, I was back to, you know, fetus position on one side. So one eye was always under a bit of pillow strain, if you like. And drawing, you know, I draw every single day. I've got my cartoons. I've got, you know, cartoons that need to be out. They need to have people wait for them, you know, and they need to be drawn and uploaded to YouTube. So I do think part of it was because of that. And also my inability to sit still and do nothing. Because they tell you for the first 5 days, do nothing, just sit still. You're not even allowed to look at anything because it's bad to, you know, push your eyes that much. Well, I didn't listen to that. Of course I didn't. I can't sit and not do anything. I had to do stuff. I did try the microphone dictation thing for my writing, which actually wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I still feel I prefer to type. Oh, Romeo's coming up. Come on. Come along. I do feel I prefer to type, though, when I'm, you know, oh, here he goes, when I'm writing a novel, you know, for immersion, when I'm doing an immersion chapter. Something about writing or typing, I should say. I'm not that old school that I use a fountain or quill dipped in ink. Hello, darling. So yes, it's if you're struggling with your eyesight for any reason, do try it. It really is quite doable, if you like, for things like messaging people. I used it on my WhatsApp. I used it for my chat, Google. It's really good for all of that. Facebook, if I wanted to message someone, you just click the little microphone and you can speak. Really useful, really, really useful little tool, that. And I know a lot of us, when we get a bit older, our eyes start to go. I don't know about you guys, but mine are terrible. They're shocking. I'm really at that stage now where I cannot see a thing without my specs close up. Ingredients, I mean, they make them so... Why do they do that? Why do they make ingredients on foodstuffs so minuscule? Even with my glasses on, even with my reading glasses on, I cannot read those. I've got a friend, actually, who is a man, and he couldn't deal with glasses. So he just walks around with this little magnifier. So when he's in shops, he just pulls it out of his pocket and has a little shafty. Do you know what I mean? Hilarious. Could not wear glasses. Just was not his look. Ex-punk. And I find that punk boys actually are the hardest to get out of their old punky ways when it comes to fashion, as it were. I mean, he's not going around in a Mohican with safety pins in his nose anymore. But do you know what I mean? I think these old habits die hard. And when I first started wearing glasses, I resisted for probably about 8 years. I didn't want to be photographed in them and stuff like that. Now I don't give a monkeys. I can't see, if I'm doing a selfie, I can't see it unless I have my glasses on. It's crazy. So if I don't have my glasses on, it's all hit and miss. Anyway, I went to Brighton yesterday, spent 2 days with my daughter and my grandson, which was absolutely stupendous. It's really special, so special. I don't get to see them enough. I'm always moaning that, I'm sort of out of their world. So I sort of took the bull by the horns and thought, I'm just going to, try and hedge my invite, as it were, try and get one and make them think it was their idea. So I managed that, and it was absolutely stupendous. But I didn't take the car for parking reasons, but that looks like we've solved that problem. But I didn't take the car, so I went on the train. And about a third of the train journey was engineering works. There were engineering works on the track, so they put on a bus. So I had to get on a bus. So basically, I had to walk, 20-minute walk, get on a ferry, a 5-minute walk, get on a replacement bus, get the train, then change and get another train, and then walk again to get to my daughter's house. It's just, it felt like I was crossing the world. 3 hours. It was a 3-hour journey. And I'd looked at Google in the morning and it said expected time 3 hours. And I thought, well, that can't be right. It's an hour and a quarter on the train. You add on some incidentals, you've maybe got 2 hours, under 2 hours. But this replacement bus, added an extra hour to the journey. Anyway, I did it okay. And going was fine. And I quite like travelling. I like a person watch, pick a person and watch them. I do that a lot. Not in a sinister way. I find it, as a writer, I think you get really curious about people's lives. And I love to wonder. I wonder what they do and, what their body language is saying to the outside world. I love all that. It really excites me. And the Book of Emotion is very much a book about personalities and psychologies and how they interact. So it's obviously my thing. I've discovered it's my new thing. Rather than sort of passive people watching, I'm an aggressive people watcher, but one doesn't stare. People stare at me all the time, and I get really annoyed by it, just because I look a bit different. I've got braids. So anyway, the journey there was great. The journey back, absolutely horrific. Now, I'm autistic, and I just don't like people touching me. It really disturbs me. And I've noticed a lot of times on public transport, men seem to think that because they're on public transport, they can actually, touch your whole body with their body on purpose. And I don't believe it's an accident. I simply don't believe it's an accident. So I'm tiny, I'm a tiny woman, and this guy sat on the bus replacement, and I'm sitting by the window minding my own business with my holdall, my haversack thing. What do they call it? Backpack. That's the word. My back. It used to be called a haversack, didn't it? Is that a really old word? I don't know. Anyway, he sat down, and I never make eye contact. I never, I don't want to make eye contact with anyone. And he was like forcing, it felt like he was pushing me. He just completely and utterly man-spread. And his legs were wide open, and he was touching me from my knee up my thigh, up to my shoulders, but it was mostly leg contact. And 3 times, I think, I edged more towards the window, and he just took up more man space. And it so disturbed me. All the whole journey, it really disturbed me. And I felt like crying, actually, and almost sick. because I didn't believe he was doing it accidentally. Anyway, he got off eventually, one stop before me, so it was that whole hour he was doing that. And it was just horrific, guys. It felt like an assault, and I absolutely beg men listening to this not to do that, because it's just not on, guys. It felt invasive, it felt rapey, it felt scary. I mean, the bus was packed, well, it wasn't packed, it was, the seats were all used up. But the way that I just kept edging up, and if I was younger, when I was, a teenager, I would have turned around and had a go at him and said, "What the F do you think you're doing? You're shoving me against the window." But I can't do that anymore. I'm just too, I don't have the nerve. And I think when you get older, you do lose nerve, that sort of nerve, that aggressive nerve that young people have. I've really noticed that, I mean, you hear about old ladies bashing people with their handbags, don't you? I'd probably do that if my pension was in my handbag. Do you know what I mean? But no, it was just awful. And because I was getting more and more wound up about it, and because I kept moving towards the window, by the end of it, I had about a quarter of the seat, and he had 3/4. It may have even been less that I was taking up, I crossed my legs, and I didn't want to have him touching me. Anyway, he got up, and he was a big man. Not, I would say, well, I don't like to use the word fat, but he wasn't thin. So he was a big dude, really, he was very tall, he had a spacer in his ear. Not that I'm judging men with spacers, but I hate spacers. I hate them. If you don't know what a spacer is, it's a big earring. You start with a small hole, and you gradually make the earrings bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you end up with something that looks like a tiddlywink, or a 2p bit, or even bigger maybe. And I just think, he looked a bit, I don't know. I suppose what the word I'm trying to find is as if he had no idea of anybody else around him, if you like. And I had to judge him like that because of what had just happened to me. So, afterwards I thought, well, maybe it was an accident. Maybe he just doesn't, maybe he just is so ignorant that I mean, he was young. He wasn't old, he was like 20s or something. And maybe that's just ignorance. Maybe that's because no woman has ever said to him, "Can you stop sitting on me, please?" And then, of course, I wished that I'd told him. Now I wish that so that he would know that next time he shouldn't do that. But, part of me still thinks he was doing it on purpose, just to make contact, Yes, in a sexual way, actually. Yes, totally in a sexual way. Because when men do that, it is sexual, even if it is only a thigh. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's my moan over. So I'm doing lots and lots of stuff today. Going to see Mama and pick up my Temu order. I've got some tattoo stuff. And I've got to do my eyebrows, guys. I've got to tattoo my own eyebrows, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. You have to do it in a mirror. We're used to putting on makeup, but when you've got a needle in your hand and permanent inks, it's like, ooh, danger, danger, danger. Anyway, I'll be back later.